Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. The European Union's member states have agreed to extend Brexit until 31st of January next year. In a tweet, European Council President Donald Tusk said the bloc would allow for a so-called flextension. This means that the UK could leave the EU before the deadline if a deal is approved by the Parliament. The British House of Commons will also be discussing today whether or not to hold a snap general election on December the 12th. A day after an American raid killed ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, his likely successor has been killed in northern Syria. SDF commander Mazloum Abdi says Abu Hassan al-Muhajir was killed in a joint raid by Kurdish and the US forces. Witnesses said al-Muhajir was being smuggled in the back of an oil tanker when it was hit by an airstrike in Jarablus. SDF spokesman Mustafa Bali said al-Muhajir was in Jarablus to ease al-Baghdadi's entry to Euphrates Shield area. ISIS is yet to issue any confirmation or denial of the deaths of Baghdadi or al-Muhajir. Russia says the US has failed to provide reliable information to prove it has killed ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. The Russian Defense Ministry says the participants in Syria gave extremely contradictory accounts of the raid. The EU too warned that the fight against ISIS is not over. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has endorsed EU's view. French President Emmanuel Macron said the death of al-Baghdadi is only a step and the threat is far from being over. Moscow has issued a travel warning for the U.S. Russian ambassador Anatoly Antonov advised Russian citizens to be on their guard during trips to the country. Antonov said the Russian embassy's priority in the U.S. is to protect hundreds of Russians detained in American prisons. He said the Kremlin will ensure their speedy release irrespective of the position they held. The ambassador also praised Russian diplomats' efforts to secure Maria Butina release without attracting media attention. Turkish airstrikes have killed 6 Kurdish fighters in northern Iraq. In a statement, the Defense Ministry said the operation was conducted in the regions of Zab and Kandil. Turkey launched Operation Claw against the PKK in the Hakurk region of northern Iraq in May. Over 400 Kurdish fighters have been killed in the operation since then. The PKK has been designated a terrorist organization by Turkey, the US and the EU. Ankara accused the group of killing more than 40,000 people in the last 30 years. Iraqi students have joined ongoing anti-government protests in Baghdad. The development has put further pressure on Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi to resign. Around a dozen schools and universities have been shut down. Students have marched through streets littered with tear gas canisters. 74 people have been killed, with 77 others injured during clashes between protesters and the police. The Prime Minister's spokesman warned any further disruption to school schedules would have severe consequences. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas says an international conference on Libya to be hosted by Berlin will look for ways to end foreign interference in the country. The conference date is yet to be finalized but will probably be in November or early December. He was speaking to reporters in Libya alongside his Libyan counterpart Mohammed Tahir Siala and the UN envoy to Libya Ghassan Salameh. The foreign minister said outside influence is a fundamental problem in the Libya crisis. Earlier, the three met Libya's Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj. Libya has been mired in conflict since the fall of longtime dictator Muammar al-Gaddafi in 2011. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has inaugurated Baba Guru Nanak University in Nankana Sahib. This is the second major project for the global Sikh community by Islamabad after the Kartarpur corridor. Addressing the ceremony, the Prime Minister said, "This university is a tribute to the teachings of Sikhism founder Baba Guru Nanak." PM Khan said Sikhs from across the world can come and get both religious and worldly education from this institution. He said the institute will also serve as a community center. U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad has briefed Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani on the revival of the Afghan peace process. Ghani spokesperson Siddiq Siddiqui says that the two leaders exchanged views on possible ways forward for peace in the war-torn country. Khalilzad arrived in Kabul on Sunday to meet the country's leadership in an attempt to restart talks with the Taliban. The U.S. Embassy in Kabul has made no comments on Khalilzad's visit. In Argentina, center-left opposition candidate Alberto Fernandez has won the presidential elections. Official results show Fernandez won 48% of the vote, crossing the threshold for outright victory. President Mauricio Macri is trailing second on 40% of the votes. Fernandez's win also caps a remarkable political comeback for his running mate, ex-president Cristina Kirchner, who will be his vice president. Fernandez says he will collaborate with Macri to pull Argentina out of its economic turmoil.
Until December 10th, the president is President Macri. But of course, we're going to collaborate as much as we can, because the only thing that worries us is that the Argentines stop suffering once and for all.
Fernandez will officially assume office on December the 10th. Now moving on, Mozambique's incumbent president, Filipe Nyusi, has secured 73% of the vote in national elections. The opposition has rejected the results, saying the October 15th polls were marred by fraud and violence. Nyusi's main rival, Osofo Momade of the Renamo opposition party, is trailing behind on just 22% of the votes. The president's ruling Frelimo party made major gains in the legislative and provincial polls. In his second five-year term, President Nyusi will be expected to oversee a local gas boom led by petroleum giants like Exxon and Total. Mozambique's aspirations to become a gas exporter and also threatened by an insurgency in its Cabo Delgado province. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his main rival Benny Gantz have opened a new round of unity talks to end a political stalemate. It is the first round of direct talks since Netanyahu gave up on his push for a fourth term as Prime Minister. President Reuven Rivlin tasked Gantz to form a government by next month. Rivlin has promised to do all he can to prevent a third election since April. Israel has been paralyzed by political deadlock following an inconclusive election last month. Earlier, Gantz's blue and white party said it will not enter government with the Likud party, while Netanyahu is their leader. South Korea says it wants to talk with North Korea to defuse the dispute over the Mount Kumgang resort. Mount Kumgang sits on the northeastern coast, just north of the heavily fortified border separating the two Koreas. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un earlier said he wanted what he called the shabby and capitalist structure removed and rebuilt. Seoul's Unification Ministry has warned against the unilateral demolition of the site, saying it would damage inter-Korean ties. The ministry added it has asked the North to hold a working-level meeting to discuss the issue. Hong Kong police fired tear gas and rubber bullets at pro-democracy protesters who defied authorities to hold a rally on the city's harbour front. Police say some of their officers were attacked with hard objects and umbrellas. Tensions rose early on Sunday when riot police flooded the harbour-side park in the Tsim Sha Tsui district. An unsanctioned rally was due to take place at the venue. Clouds of smoke were seen across the street, usually packed with tourists, and protesters and police clashed in what has become a weekly ritual. Many protesters wore masks, defying a recent emergency law banning face coverings. But few involved in the clashes had protective helmets and respirators used by more hardcore frontliners. Tear gas, pepper spray, and some rubber bullets were fired in at least 3 different locations as clashes broke out and crowds scattered. Chile's President Pinera has lifted a week-long state of emergency after mass protests. Authorities imposed the state of emergency and a curfew last weekend after Chile was rocked by its worst civil unrest in decades. In a statement, Pinera said he has pulled back 20,000 troops and police to restore institutional normalcy. Meanwhile, demonstrations in the capital, Santiago, continued regardless. Last week, more than 1 million people took to the country's streets, demanding economic and political change. Myanmar's army says it has rescued 14 hostages kidnapped by rebels in the country's restive Rakhine state. The rebel Arakan army kidnapped 50 soldiers and policemen after seizing a ferry yesterday. The Arakan army says many were killed during the rescue operation. The rebels accuse the military of opening fire with machine guns and helicopters, killing the hostages. Rejecting rebel claims, Myanmar's army said rebels used hostages as human shields. An oil spill in a river in southeast Bangladesh has threatened the breeding ground of the critically endangered Ganges dolphin. The officials say a tanker carrying 12,000 tons of diesel collided with another ship on the Karanafuli River, spilling the fuel. Environmentalists say the spill has posed a serious threat to 60 freshwater dolphins who use the area as their breeding ground. In the past 4 years, 20 dolphins have already died unnaturally in Bangladesh's Karanafuli and Halda rivers. The air quality in India's capital, New Delhi, has plummeted following a night of fireworks for Diwali celebrations. The smog has disturbed the daily lives of New Delhi residents as they cannot carry on their normal activities. Find out more in this report.
Toxic smoke and ash from firecrackers filled the air as the overall air quality index crossed severe mark in the city. Government data recorded air quality of the city at 460 today, making it extremely dangerous to breathe.
People burst a lot of crackers yesterday, the results of which we are bearing today this morning. You won't believe that we were here since 5 in the morning and we had not brought masks, but we especially bought masks from the shop so that we can save ourselves from the pollution by wearing masks.
Every winter, Delhi is wrapped in a nauseous blend of smog from car fumes and industrial emissions, making it one of the world's most polluted cities.
Over 180 people have been told to evacuate Northern California as its wind-whipped wildfires spread. California's Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a statewide emergency. The Department of Forestry and Fire Protection says it has been able to contain only 10% of the fires so far. Officials say the blaze grew by almost 4,000 acres overnight to 30,000 acres and has destroyed 79 structures. A long-lost painting by the 13th century Italian master Cimabue has been sold for $26 million at an auction in France. The painting was found in the kitchen of an elderly French woman before being auctioned.
The tiny painting, measuring just 20 by 26 centimeters, is believed to be part of a diptych consisting of 8 small panels. The auction house did not reveal the identity of the bidder, but said a foreign museum was among the bidders.
It was the sale of all possibles, meaning an immense painter, Cimabue, and a unique work of art. There are no others from that point on. Anyone who wanted a Cimabue painting today was ready for anything.
The painting by early Renaissance artist Cimabue, discovered earlier this year, was valued at $6.6 million.
Obviously, we knew that our estimation had some potential, but already at 10 to 12 million, we were immensely happy, and to finish at over 24 million is more than we could have dreamed of.
Born in Florence, Cimabue was a pioneering Italian primitive painter, of whom only about 10 known works have survived.
More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned with Indus. European stock markets have opened mixed as investors await a European Union decision on delaying Brexit. Investors are also awaiting an expected US interest cut on Wednesday. London's FTSE 100 index is trading marginally lower. Frankfurt's DAX index has picked up a fraction, while the CAC in Paris is flat. In Asia, stock markets closed at a 3-month high after Chinese and the US officials said they are close to reaching a mini trade deal. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index and the Shanghai Composite gained nearly 1%, despite a 5% drop in Chinese industrial profits in September. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you may follow us on social media at Indus.